Once again, welcome everybody to the Front Door Show brought to you by Four Fantastic Events, DJ Prieto. And I'm your host, DJ Prieto. And today, direct from Arizona, Michael, DJ
Hey,
Kilo. Hey, what's going on, man? How you doing?
good. How are you?
Good, good. Well, just in case people don't know who you are, what I do is I tell everybody, introduce yourself, give a little intro to you while you're doing that. I'm setting up my watch parties and stuff like that. So go.
Cool. Well, first and foremost, it's a pleasure and an honor to be on your show. You're
Thank you.
definitely a pillar of the Chicago DJ community for many years. So I thank you for giving me this opportunity and your platform. My name is Michael Carrillo, professionally known as DJ Kilo, DJ producer. Born and raised in the northwest side of Chicago, and like you said, living in Phoenix, Arizona now.
All right. So, Kilo, the last time me and you spoke was how many years now?
Uh, it was when I was in Chicago last. It was 2002.
Okay. And you had because I want to make sure that people understand that me and you known each other. We've known each other for quite a while, but you made the move 20 years ago, and I think that was you communicated with me and told me you were going to make this move. Am I correct?
Right. So consequently, I owe you. You were a very pivotal uh, in my life as far as DJing and just in life in general. I mean, we can circle back to it, but because I'm going to jump up around here and there as far as the timeline. But I was working with you through your promotions, and when you were doing Club PM,
Okay.
and it's funny though. It's a funny story. Uh, a friend of mine I was DJing with, he knew Fernando uh,
Garza or Fernando Fantasma?
Fantasma,
Okay.
and he was supposed to be DJing a guest spot at your spot, and he couldn't make it, so he asked me to do it. And that night I was hustling, grinding. I was doing bars, 3 bars a night, just trying to get out there and hustle. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. It's a great opportunity. Why not? And I wasn't supposed to go on until like 1 or 2 in the morning, and I was tired. I was sick. I had like a fever. Nose was dripping, and it was a cold winter night in Chicago. And I got there, so I went upstairs, and there's like a little back room, right before you get onto the DJ booth
Right.
on the balcony, and nobody talked to me. Everybody was kind of avoiding me, and I think the guy before me was doing like a Spanish rock set. So I was like, well, I have no, I didn't bring that kind of music. So I'm like, I'm going to have to play something different. So it was my turn, and I started playing hip hop, which wasn't really my thing, but it was different from what everybody else was playing there. And I remember the first and the last song. The first song was Nelly, Hot in Here. It had just came out. And then the last song was Tupac, I Get Around. And I just remember just everybody dancing, going crazy. And I turn around and I see Fantasma talking to you, and you're like, get his number, get his number. I'm like, I'm like, all right, cool. I think that's a good sign. And and then I remember talking to you, and you had like a fanny pack, right? And you pulled out some money. I'm like, oh wow, I'm getting paid for this. So, and it was like a 20-minute set, so I wasn't expecting any money. But so good looking out on that. And then you had asked me to, come by every week to do a set. So I really appreciate that opportunity.
I think it was one of our open DJ nights. Is that what I
It
because
had to have been because
yeah.
I know you don't normally do that, but or I don't know if you did or not. I just happened to be a friend of someone who was in the know and couldn't make it. So
Right. I think I have given quite a few DJs here in Chicago opportunities to play, and obviously we had a captive audience. 1,800 people were
yeah.
which called, and yeah, there was a time when were DJing upstairs in like a little balcony area,
Hmm.
and there was a time that we were DJing on the stage area, and we kind of
Um,
we kind of did those both, and I think you probably were in the very early stages of Club PM / Palladium.
Right,
'Cause
the
that's when
upstairs. I remember
yeah,
that.
yeah, we were upstairs, and that was when that was kind of Palladium / Club PM. It was like that the early stages of the when we had just created Los Cuatro Fantásticos. That was the
Right.
company that we did. It wasn't even called Four Fantastic Events yet.
Oh, okay.
So I guess let's go back to your beginning. Where did you start to DJ? You said you were born in north west side of Chicago, but how
Yeah,
old?
I grew up near Cicero and Fullerton.
Okay,
So I didn't actually start DJing until like 1993, but I mean, I had a love for music since I was like maybe 10 years old. So we're talking about 86, 87. I remember having like a Walkman that had the recorder button on it, and I would just listen to the radio and sort of make my own edits and make my own mixes. And at that point, I was just listening to pop radio, um, B96, Z95, um, whatever was popular. And then it wasn't until I got into high school that I got hit with the house music scene, which they didn't even call it house music. They just said the mixes, you know. Everybody waited for the weekend to hear the mixes. So a lot of my influences were like the B96 guys, Bad Boy Bill, Julian Perez, Bobby D, Frankie Hollywood, a lot of those guys. Um, and then after a while, I learned to appreciate the era before them, you know, the Hot Mix 5 and whatnot. So it wasn't until like 1993. Actually, I was on the alley in the back of my house and playing basketball, and a couple of guys came by to play with us, and one of them was a DJ. So we went back to his house, and he had the setup. You know, that's the first time I'd ever seen turntables and speakers, and I was like, "Wow, you know, this is pretty cool. This is something I definitely I can get into." You know, but I didn't have the money to buy equipment. So it took me a while to ask my dad to buy me some equipment. And surprisingly, the first time I asked, he's like, "Well, yeah, let's just go and buy you some." I'm like, "Shit, okay." And I remember I was back then before the internet. I had to research this stuff through the yellow pages, to find out where to buy turntables.
right. Yeah, that was pre-internet, pre-Google.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I was putting in work. So I remember going to Midwest Stereo
Yeah.
on Diversity and Clark, and the guy kind of knew that I was a newbie, and he sold me some belt drive turntables, Geminis, with a little Gemini Scratch Master mixer, 2 channel, that I had for like 5 years. Every day practicing in the basement, buying 2 or 3 records a week because that's all I could afford. Until I had a decent collection. Um, just doing neighborhood parties and whatnot.
All right. So when did you like? How old were you when you gravitated like to your first bar
Okay.
/ teen club or?
No, I did mostly parties. It wasn't until 1997. My girlfriend at the time was like, put out a mixtape, and give
Okay.
it to the bars and see what they say. So I was like, nah, no one's gonna want to hear my mixes. I was really like shy, and I didn't think that my mixes were any good. And I said, all right. She just kept on bugging me and bugging me. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I dropped them off at 3 different places. I dropped it off at the original Drink downtown. This place called Sidelines on Halsted and Belmont or something like that.
Oh my, you went for the real bars. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
yeah. Well, I didn't know. And the third one was the place called El Jardín Fiesta Cantina, and that was one of the first bars I ever snuck into when I was a kid. The back door. I just snuck up there, and I remember. Do you remember that place or no?
Yes, I do. Go ahead.
So, so I went there. I was like 15 years old. I snuck in through the back door, and place was crowded. People were jumping. I look up, and the DJ was like incredible. His name was Dan the Man. And after a while, the bouncers knew I was a little kid. They threw me out. I'm like, I'll be back. I'll be back when I'm of age. So that's when I dropped off my tape. And then they called me back from the Drink, and I wasn't 21 yet. So when I got to the actual place, the bouncer would not let me in. He's like, "You're not 21. You blew your biggest chance. Get out of here. Beat it, kid." I was like so demoralized. I was like, "Oh, that's it. This just confirms that this was not meant to be." So I went home. They're like, "Well, you still dropped them off at 2 other places." I'm like, "All right." So I went to Sidelines because they never called me back. I kept on bugging them and bugging them, and they finally called me in, and they were pretty cool. They said they liked my tape. Then they started asking me questions about, you know, have I DJ'd before and who I knew. And at that point, I was just bullshitting. I was like, yeah, yeah, I know so and so. I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. And the lady goes, oh, so Jesse De La Pena? I'm like, oh yeah, me and her go way back. So then she's like, it's a guy, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, 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 of course, yeah, yeah. And then I never heard back from her.
But if you're gonna bullshit, you better bullshit well because.
Right, I had no idea. I was like, she caught me right there. I couldn't do nothing about it. And then so the last one was El Hardin. So Danny calls me up after I had been bugging him as well, and he's like, "Come on down, let's just talk." So I went down there on a Friday night, and it was like early before the place even opened up. He's like, "I like your mix. You can use a lot of help, but you have potential." I'm like, "All right, cool." He's like, "You can DJ here Friday night and then Saturday night. Friday night, I'll give you $50, and Saturday night, I'll give you $75. I was like, wow, I'm getting paid too. I just wanted to check it out. But he gave me that opportunity and to see how to control the crowd and give me my first taste at playing different kinds of music than what I was used to.
All right. So here you're playing for El Hardin.
Yeah.
And that was was that Clark Street or
Yeah,
is
that
that
was Clark and Roscoe.
right, or Clark and Roscoe, yeah, by the L tracks there.
Yeah, right by the
And
truck. Yeah.
right, and I've been inside there. I remember, it kind of was a big thing because if I'm not mistaken, a lot of college kids were going to that place.
Uh,
Is that
well, when I was there, it was a lot of just overflow from people who went to the baseball games.
okay? All
And
right,
then
but I remember that was kind of the Clark Street had those.
oh yeah, yeah.
It was just because it was kind of that known place for college people,
Right, right. Yeah,
down
yeah.
street and stuff like
For
that.
sure.
It
For
was
sure.
even though the baseball aspect of it, I'm sure it was a big part. But if you're talking winter time, there's
Oh,
no
right.
baseball. so,
Right. No, you're right.
how long did you play there for?
I was there for a year.
Okay,
Uh,
and
s- so I was doing the weekends there, and then during the week I had picked up a residency at this place called Sidelines, but in Harwood Heights
okay,
by Wright College. And the owner wanted me to do a Spanish night, so I was like, I had zero Latin music, at least not current stuff.
right,
And I had joined the record pool called VIP
yeah, with
with
Little Angel.
Little Angel, yeah. And I go, hey Angel, man, I know I'm new, but I just got this gig for Latin night. I need you to hook me up, and he hooked it up, man. He gave me like a box of CDs, and that's when like Elvis Crespo had just came out, and so he gave me all they're all singles, promotional singles, but he hooked me up, so I was able to do that for a whole summer there, and that I just started meeting people from there on and just making connections and doing little sidebars. I was doing a place called Shoeless Joe's in Rosemont,
Okay,
a place called the Prohibition Club on Milwaukee and Bryn Mawr, and I was building up my mobile DJ company. I had a partner, so we were doing a lot of private parties and whatnot, going to Northern Illinois for the fraternity parties.
hitting the college crowd again.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, and how did you know Fernando then?
I didn't. I didn't. My partner at the time, his name was Whip.
Okay,
He knew Fernando. I
okay,
met him just that night.
okay. So just a friend of a friend, and not Jessie, the girl.
I'd actually never met Jesse.
Okay. So were you already playing these little parties, then you played for us, or was it before or
Yeah,
after?
It was
Okay,
this was early on, so it was like 97, 98, and
okay,
I didn't meet you guys till 2002.
okay. All right, that's so you were kind of mobile, a little club DJ. Then you played for us for a bit,
Yeah.
and then it was right after that you decided to go to
So
Arizona.
so here's what happened when what this is my recollection at least, right? Um, I remember I was at this club downtown, Voyeur, Voyeur,
Okay, yes, right, on
on
Ohio.
Ohio, yeah.
Uh,
And I did a little set there, and then I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to be DJing at PM, so I grabbed everybody that was with me there, and of course I had been drinking, right? And in my mind, I kind of knew what I wanted to do when I got to PM. I had vinyl, I had CD. I'm like, I'm gonna rock this place. I'm gonna show them what I got. I'm gonna be like so versatile, right? And I remember getting there, and the record starts skipping, and the CDs are everything was just off. Horrible. It was a horrible night for me, and I kind of felt like you were saying, okay, this guy's done. This guy's done. And I remember, like, I think we had a conversation that Monday because this happened on a Saturday. And you're like, yeah, I don't think we're going to need your services anymore. And I'm like, oh, I knew it. I knew it. So then I was already wanting, like, thinking about moving, and that kind of confirmed it. That's why I said that, you played a pretty pivotal role as far as which way my life was in, what direction it was going in.
So what made you go to Arizona of all
So I
places?
just, well, I had family that moved out there a couple years
Okay,
prior,
okay.
and I visited, and it was like November, and like people are swimming. I'm like, oh, this is beautiful.
Well, was there an existing house dance scene there? Was there
Well,
what?
when I left Chicago, I had no intention on DJing out here. I sold all my equipment. Came out here just to find the new life. And I didn't go to a club out here for a year. I got so bored that one day they have a magazine that's similar to like the Reader in Chicago,
Okay,
and they have a middle section that shows all the clubs and bars that have a DJ. So I called every club on that list, right? And none of them were looking for nobody. And it wasn't until I got to the very last one, a place called Sky Lounge, and the guy's like, yeah, we're not looking for nobody, but why don't you come on down and we can talk? So I'm like, all right, cool. So I went down there. The general manager was from Chicago, so we hit it off as far as that. And the guy, the resident DJ never showed up. So he's like, hey man, did you bring your music? I'm like, yeah. He's like, go ahead, go DJ real quick. All right. So I jumped on and DJ'd for like maybe a couple hours. Then the guy came in finally and he goes, hey, you're fired. This guy's taking your spot. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And that was sort of like my stepping stone into the scene out here.
all right, and then what was the kind of the vibe out there? What
It
was the
was
music?
mostly, see, 2002. It was kind of like a mixture of old school dance and hip hop.
Okay,
So we're talking like Gap Band and Earth, Wind and Fire to whatever current hip hop was out at the time. So pretty much like party music. It wasn't really like underground dance or anything. Not yet, at least.
so was the clientele Latino, white,
It
black?
was it was a mix, good mix, mostly Latino and white.
Okay. And where were you located in Arizona? I mean, was this a college town? Was this
No, this was downtown Phoenix, so
okay?
just a mixture because downtown here is not like Chicago. Downtown was pretty dead out here. It still is pretty dead. There really isn't a light life out here.
All right. And since you're playing at what was it called, Sky Lounge?
Yeah,
Is
Scott
that the
Lounge.
Sky Lounge? And how long were you playing there? Or
I did maybe a few months. And then again, meeting different people there, I was able to move around and sort of find my, the lay of the land and find different guest spots here and there. But as it turns out, the GM of the Sky Lounge was friends with the program director for a dance radio station out here called Energy.
Okay.
And so she kind of mentioned my name to him since we both had the same last name, but we weren't related. I kind of used that as a a way in, like a hey, maybe we're related, knowing that we weren't, And I said, I've always been wanting to be on the radio. He's like, well, why don't you make me a mix and then we'll talk about it. So I made an all Chicago mix, like Fast Eddie, Cool Rock Steady, Old School House, Joe Smooth, Marshall Jefferson, all the classics, right?
Mhm.
And he's like, oh, this is pretty good. I hadn't heard this stuff in years. I'm like, really? Okay. He's like, I'll give you a shot on Friday afternoons. Come on down, but we do everything live. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Back then I didn't have a computer, laptop. I was still using turntables. And so that turned into like a 3-year gig for me.
Oh, wow. And for the radio station?
For the radio station, yeah.
Oh, nice.
And so that's kind of where it led me to jump into the producing aspect.
Okay.
One night, I went to show up for the radio gig, and they had a special guest DJ they brought in. His name was Eddie Amador, and he's a producer for house music. He had a huge hit late '90s that people still play today. And while he was mixing, I was talking to his wife / manager, and I was telling her, I think I have an idea for a track. She's like, well, why don't you come out tonight and we'll talk about it. So we went to the club where he was mixing at, and I was like, okay, this is my opportunity, man. I had no idea. I had no idea for what track. I just made it up. I was like, but this is my only chance I'm going to get to have someone actually possibly do something, So I get to the club, we start drinking, and I told him, hey, man, you had a hit with a track that had like 15 words. I can make you a hit with 12 words. And he starts laughing. He's like, yeah, whatever. So he goes on. I go home because I got to be up at work the next day early. I'm like, damn it, I blew my chance. So the next day, 7 a.m, I get a text message from Eddie Amador. He's like, hey, let's work on that 12-word track this weekend. I'm like, what? Okay, now I got to come up with an idea. Got the hard part out the way. Now I got to work on the song. So it's an hour before I got to get to his studio, and I still have no idea, what I'm going to present to this guy. So I'm watching Goodfellas, and there's a part. Do you remember the movie Goodfellas?
Yeah.
So there's a part where they had just finished doing the heist, and that guy's begging Robert De Niro's character for his money, his cut of the money, and he's busting his balls or whatnot. And then they cut to a picture of De Niro, and their song comes on in the background. It's "Sunshine of Your Love" by Cream. Like, do 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 do. I'm like, that song just stuck in my head. It just kept on looping in my brain. So I'm like, all right, maybe I can use that. So I get to the studio. I had the words figured out. It was pretty cheesy, cheesy words. It was like, free your mind, free your soul, let the house music take control, right? So he had a beat already that he had been working on with no lyrics. It was just a beat, it was pretty cool. So I told him my idea. He loved it. I had a friend of mine that was a rapper out here. I loved his voice, so he did the vocals. We put it together. It was banging. It was like, I can do this. I was playing it on my mixes on the radio. He's like, well, we should release it. We should, look for a label and release it. We couldn't get the sample cleared though. They wanted too much money for that sample. So it was either release it as a white label, which means that no one knows who took credit for it, or we change it up and then shop it around. So we did that, and it was way different from the original song, but it still kind of hit hard. And we were able to find the guy from the program director from the radio station was friends with the owner of Nervous Records.
Yep.
And he bought it, and then I was like, all right, cool. Now I'm gonna be rich and famous, right? Like, nah, that's not how it works, buddy. So I'm like, all right. So he's like, as soon as we release it, you got to work on your next track. Keep your name out there. I'm like, all right. So I created another track, which was released independently, and I have no idea. It was probably one of my worst productions I ever made at that point, but it still charted on Billboard. It made it to like number 26. So I was just like, what? What the hell's going on?
So what was the name of that track? The first track
The first track was called "Free Your Soul."
For Your Soul, okay. And the second
Um,
track was called,
Second one was "Work It,"
okay.
and that's the one that made it on the charts. And then that's what at that point I just started travel. I was a traveling DJ at that point. I was getting gigs, Miami and LA. I even went to Salt Lake City, Utah one time, and that's where I met Mickey Oliver.
Okay. In Utah?
Yeah, he was on the tour,
Okay.
and so that was great. I consider Mickey a friend now, but at that point I was a fan. On the plane ride there, he must be like dreading sitting next to me because I was just nonstop. So, hey, tell me about this. Tell me how the Hot Mix 5 started. Tell me about So he was but he was like the friendliest guy ever. So big shout out to Mickey and the rest of the Hot Mix 5.
Yeah, Mickey's cool people.
Yeah.
So you're doing production and you're in the studio. Way different than being
Oh man, it's the worst. I'll never do it again. It's just so tedious.
I mean, but you had Eddie Armando. He already knew what he was doing in the studio.
Oh, he had been doing it for years at that point,
Right,
on a global level.
Yeah. So, and then what happens to you with that? I mean, did it just fade off?
It kind of developed into just me being more highlighted in Phoenix, as far as if I go to the clubs would start paying you more because they know that you drew people.
Right.
So we were doing a lot of house clubs here in Phoenix. It was mostly gay clubs out here in Phoenix.
Right. Well, shit, they pay good money.
Oh yeah, they pay cash too.
Yes, trust me. I worked for Circuit Nightclub. I did Circuit Nightclub for 7 years, and trust me, it was after you left. I was in Circuit Nightclub, and then I created two gay nights at a place called Rancho Luna here, and on Wednesdays and Sundays was the gay night. We did it, and trust me, they are loyal.
Absolutely.
They follow and they spend money.
No, they're a great crowd. Oh. I actually did before I left Chicago, I was doing this place on Western by Marquette Park.
Okay.
It was called the Banana Tunnel. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I remember that. I remember that place.
It was like they had like drag shows.
Yes.
And, but I was in the DJ booth was way up on the opposite side of the stage, but it was great times I had. Just meeting different people and the camaraderie with the other DJs.
Well, yeah. Did you meet Jungle George? I think he was DJing.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Man, I forgot about him.
Yeah, Jungle George. I mean, because honestly, the true story. Jungle George and I DJ'd over at Circuit Nightclub. There was another guy.
I know who you're talking about. Hybrid. No. Circuit
Nightclub.
No. A DJ named Hybrid.
Oh God, I don't remember Hybrid. I don't remember him.
I think I met him through you.
And that was possibly. I mean, because remember, but as far as what the open DJ nights or
no, I think he was just around, and I remember him giving me like he would do his own edits of dance songs.
Hybrid, God, do you remember his real name?
I wish. He had gave me a bunch of CDs of like back then when like Kylie Minogue had just came out with "Can't Get You Out of My Head," and he had a dope remix of that. I forgot his real name.
Because I remember a lot of guys we used to exchange music all the time, and that's when I was just talking about how we transitioned from vinyl to CD, and how we had to burn all these CDs and these edits and
Right.
stuff like that. So we were burning all these CDs and exchanging CDs back and forth. We'll make 6 copies of that CD, and then we'll give it to the guys, and the guys will give their so we all these
Yeah.
books of CDs and with the white label on it.
Yeah. Or you just write on it, this is what it is,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, and then of course we got into CD burning and buying a CD burner. That was
Wow.
that was the game of it. You see, it wasn't downloading yet, but
Right, right.
it was all
It was on the
recording.
cusp. It was on the cusp of the internet age. But hey,
Right.
but I had one of your CDs from the VIP pool. It was the like 7 mix compilation you made.
So which one was it?
It
Was it
was
the
it was the one with the Ricky Martin.
oh that was Fiesta Caliente. That was
Yes.
that was the T-shirt I just posted up. I don't know if you see it on my page.
Oh, what? Yo, that salsa mix was the shit. I'm telling you, man. To this day, I'll play it.
Yeah, thank you.
I wasn't really up on salsa music back then, but so you were my introduction to that genre of music, and I started researching like that. You had like Eddie Santiago on there, and Barrio Negro, right?
Right.
Oh man, I love that CD.
It was Siempre Caliente, Fiesta Caliente, and Mas Caliente. And I think that's when Luis Roland Rivera was working with Angel at the VIP record
Yeah,
pool.
Lou, yeah, I remember
Uh,
him.
and I remember, and Lewis was very instrumental because I don't know if you knew this, but um, we were sending all my CDs to all the record pools out there, distributing them out to record pools. And Sonido, what is it? Sonido Unidos? Is that the name of the record pool that was out in Miami?
Oh yeah.
I was rated #1 on their record pool.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna confess right now. There's many a nights where I said that was me when he was playing your mix right now. So that's my confession.
So yeah, I mean, it's flattering, but at the same time, I guess I understood a DJ who wasn't a Latin DJ,
Yeah.
how they can, I made it for that purpose. Let me make it a mix.
Well, thank you very much.
Because that and you know how many non-Latin DJs, and I'm talking about non-Latino DJs.
Right.
Let's read the white guys at weddings.
Yeah.
Found out it was my mix. They would tell me, "Dude, you're a lifesaver." Oh my god! Like if there needed to be a merengue set or a salsa set, this was the CD, man. It was our
that was my go-to.
Yeah, right. That and it was the it's a lifesaver CD. Here we go.
God, you don't know how many times you saved my life with that CD.
And I think one of the things people didn't realize that I purposely didn't put drops on there for that purpose because I said, you know how many people are going to buy the CD that are DJs?
Yeah, that's true.
Because I used to have a lot of DJs tell me, dude, when your next mix came out, we looked for it because we knew that was going to be the lifesaver CD for the wedding. Yeah, because they're, any wedding, they want to hear, the Elvis Gospel, the Dueño de Swing.
Right.
It was just to go to Latin. I don't got Latin music, but wait a minute, I got a CD. Here it is. Click. and what is it? 15-minute mix?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's only 15. I think I might have played it multiple times in one night without even knowing it.
But
because they didn't.
Because it was 15-minute mixes, or it would hit. So it was just long enough that it was like, okay, and everybody had fun. Then you go and play your regular music, and then,
exactly.
or the band goes on, and so and trust me, I understood that mentality as far as a DJ wanted to work. But thank you, Michael, for saying that.
Didn't you used to DJ at Sapphire, right?
I was doing Club PM at the time, and I DJ'd a couple times at Sapphire for some of the Spanish rock events that was there.
Because I know, okay, I'm trying to think because maybe my memory's a little shoddy here, but one of my friends, Calvin, was the MC. Sabroso?
Yeah, he was DJ. He was basically he was the MC for the Tuesday Night Boxing at
Right,
Tropicana.
right, right.
Right. And that was the transition because he went with Ruben. Ruben decided to do the boxing over at what's called Oxygen Club O. And
Okay,
then they changed it to Sapphire after that.
right.
Calvin was working with Ruben, and when he left Tropicana, because that's what it was originally with Tropicana, he went over to Club O / Sapphire and stayed with Ruben. And every so often, I would work under Henry Cardenas whenever they did us like a Spanish rock concert. So that was when I was in there. But mostly when it came to Tuesdays, I was working with Marco Hernandez over at Green Dolphin doing the salsa nights
Oh,
there on a
okay.
Tuesday. So that was kind of like that whole transition of, well, they were doing the Tuesday night boxing on Tuesdays, and then Fridays and Saturdays. I know Calvin was still working with them on Friday and Saturday, doing some emceeing for them. And then I was doing, I think I still had Club PM and
Mhm.
Rancho Luna at the same time. So I was doing both.
Wow.
So I rarely, and then I had my gay night on Wednesday, my reggaeton night on Thursday,
Wow.
Friday and Saturday I had Club PM, Rancho Luna,
Oh, wow.
and Club PM, and then Sunday I had my gay night, and Monday I had my salsa night over at Rancho Luna.
My God,
and,
you're the hardest working man in the industry.
and Tuesday I was with Marco over at Green Dolphin.
You know.
So I was
Wow.
7 nights a week. I was probably and it was cool because I was happy about it because of the fact that I had different nights, different kind of nights and stuff like that. It wasn't the same thing, and but stayed in contact with Calvin until he moved out of town. He did,
Yeah.
he jumped Chicago strip just like you did.
Yeah, he went to Florida, I think, right?
Correct. In fact, I communicated with him like about a year ago. I think me and him finally caught up with each other. Um, it was Florida, or I thought it was Philadelphia or something like that. Anyway, he went East Coast. I know he went East Coast. I'm not sure where he went.
Yeah.
Could have been
Well,
Boston.
his brother's my best friend since we're like seventh grade.
Okay.
Um, Billy. Shout out to Billy. What's up? I hope he's watching. Um, but yeah, I think he did go to Florida.
All right. And then, so you were working for the radio station. Let's go back to where you were saying you
Okay.
were. This was 2007.
So
Is it?
2006
Okay.
to about 2008, I was on the radio.
Okay.
And the reason why was they flipped formats and got rid of everybody that was there. But at that point, I was, pretty much burnt out already. Um, so then I just stuck to the clubs and doing mostly private parties.
Did you create a mobile
Yeah,
industry?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So at that point, I was, pretty much living off of my mobile entertainment, my gigs.
And is that what you're doing up until now? Is that what you're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
now?
I've been doing that. I stopped doing clubs, um, maybe 2012, like
Okay.
regularly. I would do guest spots here and there, but I was just done. I became the old guy at the club, and it was a weird feeling, because out here around that time when Serato came out, when it became big, it was like 2008, 2009, and everybody and their mama was a DJ, and it became a matter of who you knew and who would do it for the cheapest.
Oh yeah.
I imagine that's the same in Chicago. And so I said, you know what, this is not for me. I'm not really into that. I think I've paid my dues enough where I don't have to, basically beg people for a spot. So I was in a position where I can just pick and choose what I want, what I want to do and where I want to be at. So I met a promotions guru out here. She has the most loyal crowd, and she rents out the resort at the casino out here for
Nice.
all the major parties like 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day, Halloween, New Year's, and I'm her resident DJ for those, and she packs at least about 1,200 a night.
Nice. Very
So
nice.
she's been pretty good to me, and I've been loyal to her for the past, I don't know, what's going on 10 years now.
Well, pretty good, pretty good. Well, that's a good thing. Um, so Phoenix, Arizona, March, I think it gets hit with the COVID as far as what you guys, so it put a kibosh on the mobile gig and events and stuff like that. So what happens with you now
So,
with the,
right. So I haven't done a gig since New Year's.
okay,
And I've been at home honing my mixing mix show skills, so I've been keeping busy putting out mix shows on Mixcloud.
okay,
I've been pretty busy. I've put out since March. I've put out about 15 mixes.
okay.
So that's kept me pretty busy. I mean, I do it for the love of it, for the music and just to get people to say, "Hey, listen to your mix, loved it." So that's, for me, that's gratitude enough. That's payment enough for me. I'm at the point where I don't really need to work as far as DJ wise, but it's always good to have it in my heart and to give people joy.
So have you done any live streaming on
No, I'm
Facebook?
afraid of that, because I'm real my ego, I have a big ego. And when I stroll to and I see people mixing on Facebook and whatnot, my first thing is I go to the clicker, the counter to see how many people are watching, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want like to say two people when I'm mixing, I don't, it's just, that'll destroy me, it'll demoralize me.
Well, I used to think that too, um, when I started this show interviewing, and you know, I jumped on. I don't know if you realize that a lot of people don't realize that my first show was March 14th. I think that was my first show.
Hmm.
I downloaded the Zoom application on March 13th. That was the first time I ever done Zoom.
Hmm.
Um, so I had no clue about this interviewing thing at all. I mean, honestly, I've never done it before.
Really, you sound like a pro.
And thank you. And the other factor that I didn't realize is that because of the replays and all the stuff, I kind of knew something about live streaming because
Hmm.
I did it for about like a week and a half, almost 2 weeks before I did this show, and that was kind of why I did this show, was because I got a little frustrated with Facebook because of all the algorithms and them stopping the party, stopping the music, and I obviously understand the copyrights
Right.
aspect of it. But to me, I was like, you know what? I don't want to be live streaming. I don't want to be live streaming. This is I like DJing and I like DJing live, but live streaming is a different animal. And at the same time, I got to give credit to the people who've been doing it for years. They've been doing it for years. Tim Spinney Showman, Julian
Oh yeah.
Perez, all these guys have been doing it for a long time. And I said, I'm not trying to repeat what they're doing already. So that's that. I did not want to do that. I didn't want to become this live streaming guru when it comes to mixes or music and stuff like that. So I said, you know what? But then I also was looking at numbers, like you said, looking at numbers and stuff. And I was like, oh man, when I did this interviewing, I was like, okay, how many people are watching? How many views and stuff like that? And what I learned that some people who only have like 300 views, let's say, they says there could be like only 30 people or 20 people seeing it live right there. But that doesn't mean 300 views later at the end of the show, and it reaches 1,000 people. And I'm like, wait a minute, how does those numbers work? And then I figured it out. And then I'm seeing reaches like a show doing almost 5,000 people. I'm like, holy, so I was like,
What?
I'm just like, okay, wow, that's pretty cool. And a lot is to do with the interviewer sharing it and passing it friends and creating watch parties and stuff like that. So, obviously you create your watch party, you put it on groups and stuff like that. That's how it grows. And, there's been some really surprising interviewers that I've done where I think they're going to get big numbers. And there's people who I think, okay, these people aren't going to know anybody and nothing, and all of a sudden, wham! I'm like, wow, this is tremendous. They got bigger views than the guy who is more
Right.
famous,
Wow.
And it's it's a lot to do with who you know and how many their friends and friends and 6 degrees of separation
Right,
basically.
right,
You know?
exactly,
So
exactly.
that's so don't get discouraged about how many people actually like in this little number here.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, don't get discouraged about that because that there it has a lot to do with people watching it and watching over and over and over and over again, and so for it works in advantage of my show and it works in advantage for you as the interviewer because you get to see a lot of people it keeps you relevant, you know
Right, right.
and obviously keeps me relevant as well.
Come on, man. You can always stay relevant.
Thank you, but I try.
Yeah,
I,
I have too much.
I'm the old man.
I'm too much of a control freak. I like when I do my mixes. Of course I edit it and I make it sound. I want it to sound a certain way so that when you hear it in your car, it hits. So I make sure the waves are perfect and the sound effects and whatnot. So I want to make sure that's perfect. Which is something I can't control when I'm live.
What's the mixed cloud?
Oh, it's mixcloud.com/DJ Kilo.
Okay, so
So I
make
got
sure
a variety.
at the end of the interview, I'll put it as a link so people can
Okay.
check it out and stuff like that. And so obviously, I tell everybody. So with this COVID thing happening, um, I I just thought I seen something about Arizona. They got a resurgence of
Yeah, it's definitely hit a spike in the numbers.
mhm.
But you can never trust the source as far as is it a spike because people are getting tested now more than before, or
ah
if it's because things have reopened recently and people are just exposed to other people. So it's kind of hard to determine that.
I thought you would have the insight.
Oh no, no, no.
And everybody's been healthy on your end, right? Everybody
No,
is
to be honest, I think I had it already back in January. I was sick
well.
as a
Guess what?
dog.
Guess what? That's all of us. January, December. If in case anybody hasn't heard it from me, you're going to hear it from me first. I have the antibodies, so that may,
Do
but
you?
that, yeah. So
Oh,
that doesn't mean that I never got sick in March, April, May. I never got sick through the whole time that they said. But you're right, December, January, sick as a dog,
yeah.
sick as a dog.
Worse than ever.
Yeah, and I think all of us were sick as a dog. So if you ever get tested, you're probably going to figure out that you have the antibodies and stuff like that. So everybody, that kind of is the norm. I think what happened, maybe that was a weaker strain of it in
Yeah,
December, January, whereas in March and April,
it
that was
picked up steam.
it picked up steam. And I think the people who got it at that time had, because I didn't have the respiratory issues, I didn't have the no tasting, the diarrhea,
Yeah, no, I
all
didn't have
the
that either.
I mean, I think, and I think there's the scale of 1 to 100. I think you're going to hear about the 100 more because obviously those are the more. But then you won't hear too much of the 1 to 10 because that to them it was like, oh well, it was a flu. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and I think
I was actually in Cancun in March, so it was on the cusp of whether or not they were going to shut the borders down or stop letting people in. And for me, I was like, yeah, shut it down. I'm in Cancun. It's beautiful out here. I had the whole beach to myself.
so I was, but you didn't get sick all this time though. You were
No,
all good,
not
right?
since the January.
Yeah.
So does that mean so if we have the antibody, does that mean that we can't get it?
Well, this is what I understood from the doctor. We can get it, but it's not going to because we have the antibodies. So that means we're going to get it like a flu.
And
That's
then it'll
it. So you're not going to get it. You're not going to have the death, you warm over the type of thing. So I mean, just like any flu, you could get flu over and over again, stuff like
right,
that.
right, yeah.
So but that doesn't mean you can't spread it as well.
Oh,
So the antibodies mean that you can still get it.
you can
And
spread
I
it.
think I think that's why we talk about wearing the mask and stuff like that. The mask is to help prevent you from spreading it, not so much as you catching it.
Right.
You
Oh,
got it. Hey, you get it. You get it. You're gonna basically a virus is like anything else. Let it go through
right.
its system. It's gonna go through what
It's
a virus
cycle.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're supposed to. But I mean, Other than that, you know, I hear a lot of friends. One of my DJs that I'm going to be interviewing, he just posted up today that he had it, but he got really bad. Another one of my DJs had gotten bad. He had to be put in the hospital.
Oh wow.
Another friend of mine, and you know, so you hear the horror stories of you hear again the extremes and then non-extremes. You hear guys that get sick, and guess what? 2 weeks they're done. It's over with, and they're fine. And
Yeah.
then you hear about the guys who get sick and they're in the hospital,
Yeah.
and you know they got the oxygen and everything else and stuff like that. So I mean, I feel for both parts of it. You know, we get sick, we get sick. Doesn't mean that we in January and December when we got sick that I didn't end up going to the hospital because I didn't
Mhm.
you know, but I felt like I was dying in bed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but to me, it was like, damn, I got a really bad flu. Shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember even telling people I'm dying. I would say it, and they would think, you're being a baby. I'm like, no, I'm dying. This is like the worst I've ever felt. I didn't go to the hospital, but I went to urgent care, and
Okay.
and they're just saying, yeah, you just got a bad sinus infection or something. And I'm
Right.
like, no, this ain't no sinus infection. This is, going to urgent care is like, you know, going to see your buddy, asking him what his opinions are. It's not as like they're,
They,
they're not
they're, they're,
as
they're like, they're like, okay, go.
exactly. There's levels, there's levels of this healthcare, but yeah, I'm pretty sure I had it.
All right. So, I mean, that's basically it. As long as you didn't get deathly sick, then you're okay. You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with with time's coming up. So
Okay.
anything you want to say to the people who sign on and were listening to your history?
I'm glad. Thank you for tuning in and letting me speak my history. And so the fans I have out there, thank you very much for your support and continue to listen to my mixes. I'm putting them out as fast as I can put them out. And just appreciate, love your. My advice to other DJs would be just during this time, if you're not out clubbing, study your music, study other kinds of music, broaden your horizons. The more you know, the more you'll be able to book different gigs and definitely know your catalog.
What about your songs that you had? Is it on YouTube as well?
YouTube, actually, some of my songs are still for sale. If you want to go to CD Baby and Track Source.
So make sure you put
Uh,
that on the link on this interview, okay?
yeah, definitely, definitely. Gotta get these diapers for the kids and stuff and whatnot.
All right, guys, that's the front door show. Thank you very much. Mike, don't go anywhere. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you up tomorrow. Thank you.